of the media who have joined us here today. We appreciate that you've come to this short briefing. We don't have a briefing statement because we want perhaps to allow you to engage with us on whatever you want to engage as we start our Congress. As you are all aware, this is the 15th Congress of the Sacp in 101 years, by the way. We've held only 14. This is the 15th. Some may say maybe we started counting in the 1950s. No, since 1921, this is Congress number 15. So it's not by accident that we name it the 15th Congress, because there were times when the party couldn't hold its congresses for a long time. Just the one period I can tell you about was between 1953 and 1962. It was almost a 9-year period, and between 1962 to 1979. No, not 1989. No, 89. No, 87, yes. The Cuban one, which was the seventh Congress. So there was a long period because of the conditions under which the Communist Party was operating in the underground, under difficulties. That's why we've only had 15 Congresses in 15 years. In 101 years, sorry. That's not being undemocratic, but it's the conditions. It's a very important Congress, like all our Congresses. We don't believe in this thing that we think has been coined largely by the media of elective Congresses. A Congress to us is a Congress. We don't put a prefix, because Congresses do not only elect, they also adopt a program. And we're very proud as the Sacp that our Congresses have always given priority to discussion of our program. We are going to be adopting an updated party program. The current program we are operating under is South African Road to Socialism, whose thrust was basically to build working class hegemony in all key sites of power. That has been our program, the South African Road to Socialism. We've said we've committed ourselves to build working class hegemony and influence in the state, in the economy, in the workplace, in the community, internationally, and in the sphere of the environment. Those were 6 key areas around which we had said we're going to focus the mobilization of the party and its participation to lead an effort for working class views, perspectives, policies to be dominant. We are now going to be updating that program and slightly renaming it. Instead of the South African Road to Socialism now, hopefully the Congress will approve this, because it's still subject to approval by Congress. The proposal now is that our program is going to be the South African Struggle for Socialism, with whose primary thrust of that program is to actually build a powerful socialist movement of the workers and the poor, not for the workers and the poor. It's a very important distinction, because we want to build a socialist movement which is made up of, and it's of the workers and the poor. Not that we cook it somewhere else for the workers and the poor. It's of the workers themselves. We may want maybe the first Deputy General Secretary just to talk a little bit about the structure of the Congress once I have finished here, very briefly, how Congress is going to go. We are starting this evening, this late afternoon today, and finishing at 4 on Saturday. And we're also going to be having the press briefing by the incoming leadership of the Sacp, which will be the 15th Congress Central Committee. with a leadership that will actually be elected at this Congress. I must just say, before I hand over to Comrade Soli, that we are aware that we are holding this Congress in possibly one of the most difficult periods of South Africa's democracy since 1994. It's one of the most difficult periods that we are facing. So this Congress has got huge responsibility to map the way forward, in line with the thrust of communism. 2 months ago, as you know, Nopal, I was in Highgate Cemetery, you know, I always, which is Marx's grave. I always, when I get a chance when I'm in London, to go to Highgate Cemetery, I always, it's quite inspirational. Strange to be inspired by a gravesite, you know. But that's where Marx is buried, and not long from where he's buried also lies Dr. Yusuf Dadoo, the late chair of the South African Communist Party. I mean, what is written in that tombstone by Marx is something very fundamental which continues to guide us. What Marx and Engels said. Philosophers have interpreted the world in various ways. The point, however, is to change it. So we haven't come then just to analyze. Yes, we will analyze at this Congress, but we want to come up with a concrete program on how to change the situation for the better. We're a Communist Party whose commitment is to build a socialist South Africa. We are unapologetic about that, because we believe that socialism is a much more better system 1,000,000 times than a capitalist system that will better be able to meet the needs of the overwhelming majority of our people. But we are not only just living in dreams, we struggle in the here and now as South African communists. We want to change the conditions of the workers and the poor for the better as part of laying that path towards a future socialist South Africa. Now, as I was saying, we are facing one of the most difficult periods. Never has our economy been in this situation since 1994. Youth unemployment, that is standing at what, 60%? It's a ticking time bomb. You can't have so many young people who are literally sitting at home, doing very little, many of them doing nothing. Some have lost hope. That is not very healthy. High levels of unemployment, poverty, and inequality. We are also going through a very difficult period right now of the challenge with energy, load shedding, which in fact now are approaching what we can call blackouts. That has got huge implications for the economy. Congress will have to grapple with this on what is to be done. We are also coming out. We are also meeting, as we have just received, the country has received the last installment of the Commission on State Capture, which was chaired by Chief Justice Zondo. Although we are not going to do justice to that in this Congress, Congresses normally are not the best places to do an in-depth analysis. But the Central Committee that will emerge out of here will have to go deep into analyzing that report. We are very proud, firstly, that we were the first one through our first Deputy General Secretaries. In fact, we're the only political party that called for a commission of inquiry into state capture. We're very proud of that. So that's why we welcome this report. The term state capture was coined by us, the SACP. Sometimes you don't want to give us, we would wish to get a headline, you know, state capture concept by SACP. You know, that would be so nice. Because it's true. The complete characterization was corporate capture of the state, which is now given a shorthand of state capture. We also, by the way, must say to you, we also made a submission to the Zondo Commission We were hoping we would be invited to also talk to that submission. Unfortunately, we were not. But we have now released that submission because we hadn't released it before because we wanted to respect the processes of the Commission. That if we submitted it to the Commission, let the Commission finish its work. We have now printed it. Please do read that. But it wasn't an input which was saying, so-and-so has done this, so-and-so has done that at ESCOM or at Transnet or wherever at the SAPC. But it was actually analyzing the reasons why state capture emerged in South Africa. This is actually the document that will be circulating, that has got, it's a very detailed analysis. You may not agree with it, but please read it and engage it. That's what we were trying to do as our own input, because we believe that we do need now to further go deeper. Why did South Africa go through such a shameful period? You know, this period of state capture is actually a shame and a blot into what has otherwise been a heroic national liberation struggle to liberate this country from apartheid, to get rid of the apartheid regime and democratize our country. If we don't do a proper analysis as to how did it come about for state capture to happen, we'll find ourselves in a similar situation in future, and we won't realize. We'll only realize when we are in the middle of it. We do point out in our own political report that there are contradictions, though, about us as a country. We have a very progressive trade union movement, for instance, in the state. How did it come about that with such a large progressive trade union movement, state capture still happened? We have a relatively weak state. That's what we are faced with now. We have a relatively weak state. COVID-19 has exposed those weaknesses, in some instances, worsened them. How did it come about that when we have a progressive trade union movement, we're not blaming the movement, but that we are actually having this corruption that has been taking place? Now, the reason why this period then is one of the most difficult, how do we take our country out of this rot? How do we take South Africa out of the rot of state capture? Especially also because there is a fight back that is taking place at the same time against the effort. We've been quite open as the SACP that we do support the effort led by President Matamela Ramaphosa for the renewal of the ANC and the struggle he is leading against corruption. We are part of that struggle as the SACP because we have to place our country where we would like it to be. We are not surprised that our people voted the manner they voted in the last local government elections because they are expressing dissatisfaction, amongst others, against corruption. It's a very difficult period. The ANC is not in good shape at all, which is leading our alliance. And we are not celebrating that as the SACP. We will have to discuss at this Congress, what do we do to try and assist the ANC to renew itself and seek to reunite itself, to be the kind of glorious organization that it had been since its formation in 1912. So these are the difficulties, you know, energy crisis, the economic crisis, high unemployment crisis, and also what we see as the re-emboldening of right-wing forces who are smelling blood because of the weaknesses and the divisions they are seeing in our own movement. Your Afri-forums are doing things that 20 years ago we never thought that they would actually have the guts, having been the beneficiaries of one of the most evil systems, the apartheid system. But they are beginning to be bold, trying to challenge some of the things, to roll back transformation that we are actually embarking upon. So there is a lot of responsibility that lies on this Congress to come out and map a way forward. How do we come out of this? As communists, we have never run away from the responsibility in our 101 years. Usually, communists have been the first in the battlefield and the last to leave as well. Because we don't run away when we have problems. Precisely in this period, our Congress will have to be bold and say, how do we deal with the economic crisis, which is the major challenge facing our country? How do we deal with the related issue of the energy crisis, electricity crisis to be specific, that we are facing? What do we think actually needs to be done? As well as the entire political program of trying to unite ourselves, the progressive forces, and the widest possible sections of South Africans. To defeat the fight back by state capture elements, we have to defeat those. It's very important. And what do we do? Where there have been weaknesses in the country in our revolution, we have also taken co-responsibility, not for everything. But in some instances, we have said, we are part of this revolution. We must also own the mistakes. Some of them are not our own mistake. We have pointed them out, and so on. So we are here boldly, despite the difficulties, saying this Congress of the SACP needs to help in mapping a way forward. We still believe that it's this alliance that still remains the hope of our people and to create the South Africa of our dreams. The ANC puts it nicely. It's one of the most powerful slogans, a better life for all. That is one of the most apt and powerful slogans that also guides us as communists in this country who have been party to liberating this country and rebuilding it. Some people attack us and say, the party is only interested in power, to be closer to power. Actually, that's not a true reflection of our 101 years in history. We've been in the trenches in the forefront. Communists have sacrificed, we have produced martyrs and so on. We're not only there only just after 1994. Even after 1994, by the way, we are very proud that we stood firm. Like the example of Comrade Joyce, who decided to resign from Parliament rather than to push as portfolio committee chair of public service, communications, rather than to push what was clearly a state capture project that was being pushed through the portfolio committee. Said, no, we are not. Some of us were fired, by the way, not that we were entitled to be in cabinet or anything. We were fired, happily so, because we stood firm. We said we had thought that when Polokwane happened, we were all committed to the same thing. Retain state-owned enterprises as some of the instruments through which we can have this, create this better life for all. But we discovered that no, some of our comrades supported keeping state-owned enterprises in the hands of the state, not in order to change the lives of ordinary people, but in order to steal, as the State Capture Commission report is telling us. We thought we had the same reason, but there were different reasons. And when that happened, we said, no, comrades, but it looks like we made a mistake. We were the first to stand out as the South African Communist Party and call out against the state capture and said, that is not what we had supported in the run-up to at the Polokwane Congress of the African National Congress. Though we were not voters, but we had hoped that that Congress was taking us out of a period of neoliberalism through gear and HIV/AIDS denialism to actually do certain things. Of course, there were many positive things, by the way, that happened. That's why we don't agree with the idea of the 9 wasted years. Don't want to be talking too much. But we don't agree with that because it's wrong. Instead, we should say there was a lot that was lost in the 9 years. Not that everything was lost. In that, the first Zuma administration did things that were very progressive. 5 priorities, which is what we're pushing for with COSATU. Let's not be all over the place. Let's prioritize the 5 key priorities for the country, one of which was education and another one health and land. And the Zuma administration adopted that. Zuma administration spent R1 trillion in 5 years in investing in infrastructure, helping us a lot to cushion the country against the global financial meltdown, for those of you who will remember, of 2007 and 2008. Antiretrovirals were rolled out under that administration. actually pushing up the life expectancy in our country. So there were a number of positive things that were good, that we associated with, which we, as the socialist axis with COSATU of the alliance, had called for. But also there were wrong things that happened. And we were amongst the first to say, we're calling out of these wrong things must be done away with. I'm proud at some stage the SACP sent me to go and talk to some of the senior leaders who shall remain unnamed of the ANC at the time, to say, but what is this Gupta family doing in our government? We tried everything, by the way, even before we came out publicly, to say, but these things must come to an end. They are wrong. Some people say, yeah, you brought us that administration as the SACP. Of course we did, with good intentions, but when things went wrong, we say things are going wrong. We call that out. We're not afraid as the Communist Party. We're not chopping and changing. We have stood to where we've actually stood. So also this Congress will be evaluating all that, and what lessons can we learn out of that period in order then to be able to map a way forward. So let me not talk any longer than that. I will give the first Deputy General Secretary maybe to just give us quickly the outline of the Congress, what's going to be happening when, so that you know exactly also when will we need you. You are invited. When will we ask you to just let us a little bit talk on our own, although we are a transparent organization, as you well know, and a very generous organization.
Yeah, no, thanks very much, Nopal, Comrade Blade, and greetings to the party officials and to all of you. Of course, our Commissar, Alex. We have given you a program for the Congress. So this is what I'm going to take you through. It basically, we'll start now. As we live here, we'll have a special central committee just to appraise the central committee of progress we've made regarding Congress preparations. And thereafter, at 5 o'clock, we'll start our Congress. We'll run Congress tonight until around past 8-ish, and thereafter we'll close. You are allowed, as media, to attend this opening session. We see that we have been oversubscribed for this media. We printed text. I think our team will manage that. We printed a number of texts of people that are not here, those who registered, and there were more who arrived, but they will sort that out. You are allowed to participate in that. And then tomorrow, we'll start at 9 o'clock with the Premier of Gauteng, Comrade David Makura, who will address Congress and welcome us here. And thereafter, we'll then receive Electoral Commission guidelines. They are included in this pack. And thereafter, we'll then receive the presentation of the Central Committee Political Report, the 14th Congress Central Committee Political Report to the 15th Congress. That's all where our messages are concentrated, the political stuff. In fact, these reports, sometimes you read and throw them after writing the story. We'll appreciate sometimes if you can study them. Because they say much about us, about our intentions over the next 5, even 10 years. And after that, we'll then hand over the Chris Hani Peace Award. This is the highest honor that the SACP gives. It will be announced tomorrow. the person who's receiving the award will be joined by Ausdimpo Hani, who is the widow of Comrade Chris, to assist our General Secretary to hand over this Chris Hani Peace Award. This award is only awarded at our congresses. We did make a special recognition at some point for this award to Comrade Hugo Chavez, given his role in the struggle for socialism, and unfortunately he passed on before we could honor him proper. But we've got a delegation from Venezuela that is also here, from PSUV, that's the United Socialist Movement of Venezuela. And thereafter we'll then receive international messages, first the organizational report, and later on international messages from different regions. That will then conclude the evening of tomorrow. Then the following day, which will be Friday, we'll start again 9 o'clock with the address by the president of the ANC, Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa. Did you say that?
He said it.
Yeah. He likes him. And we'll then have a presentation of our finance report by Comrade Joyce Muloi-Moropa, our national treasurer. And some discussion will take place. Then we'll further receive 2 fraternal messages from international parties, 3, and then we'll break for commissions. Then the whole afternoon into the evening will be commissions. That is Friday. We'll appreciate if you can take importance of commissions work. This Congress is shortened, largely because of resource constraints. We normally have 2 days or so of commissions work. We have shortened that. We have had discussions in provinces, extensive discussions. Even the delegation is not the wider delegation. We use a proportional system for allocation of delegates to Congress. You'll know that, for instance, the Communist Party of China has got over 96 million members, but at Congress they have 1,000 delegates, standard. So they take responsibility for engagements before Congress. I guess even our comrades in Vietnam, they do the same. They've got a big party. And then Saturday, which is the 16th, we'll then receive commission's reports and announcements of elections results. And after that, we'll then adjourn Congress. Our media team will guide you from time to time. If there are changes that we might have during Congress, they will always inform you. And if there are sessions that might require to be further opened or for you to be present or to leave, they will be able to indicate that. Otherwise, the rest is rules. They are attached there. And we have also attached the framework for our Congress commissions and the cross-cutting issues that Congress will deal with, as the GS was indicating. The main focus is to attend the economic crisis facing South Africa. And I think it's quite clear. The bourgeoisie, the capitalist, that benefited from this capitalist discourse in this country, they are washing their hands from this crisis that we face. and yet they called for that role. The state itself has to act much more decisively on behalf of the people, because they are unaccountable, the bourgeois. Everyone now calls on the state to respond to their problems, when largely this crisis is caused by the capitalist system. So we have to confront this system head on. That's why our Congress theme is quite clear. The movement against capitalism is going to be a mass movement. They thought sometimes they could target the Communist Party, targeting Zinande, attack him all the time. It's going to be a mass movement. That's what we're building. That's the focus of our 15th National Congress. And I think that if we achieve just a glimpse of that for South Africa, we'll end this economic misery that is facing our people. I want to thank you very much. This is the outline of what our Congress will look like. We're expecting, obviously, robust Congress, but peaceful Congress. Samkel was teasing me here before many of you arrived, and I was showing him that despite what he was saying, which is incorrect, we have held 7 provincial congresses between March and June. Of those 7 provincial congresses, there was nothing bad written about them. Good congresses. They did not invite unnecessary attention. Those are congresses of the Communist Party. We expect this Congress to be similar to those congresses. Robust Congress, disciplined Congress, good resolutions, unity of the organization. So that's our expectation, even at this National Congress. 2 provinces could not convene their congresses. One is in Mpumalanga. They are due only in October. One was Gauteng, which was a political intervention by the Central Committee for Gauteng. But otherwise, unity of the party is important for us. We're expecting this Congress as well to be much more peaceful but robust Congress. So we'll appreciate proper recording, not hyperboling peripheral things. We want to focus on the strategic things facing our country, and this was the task of Congress to respond to that. If those are the main issues, we're not interested in the peripheral things. We want to focus on how to resolve the challenges of the working class, the living conditions of the working class in our country. That's our main focus. Thank you, Dr. Mashi.
Thank you, Diaz, for handing over to Comrade Soli. And thank you, Comrade Soli, for the outline of the program and a brief description of the way forward expected from the Congress under the leadership that will be elected by the Congress based on the program and resolution, as well as the declaration it will adopt. GS, allow me, if you may, to just say one of the great moments as a youngster in the party I had under your leadership was when the party, with you as the core, in the position of the General Secretary, was fighting for HIV treatment. In that process, you were called extraordinarily arrogant. I knew when that happened that you were leading the party in the interest of the working class. I was also impressed by your leadership. In 1997, 1998, when we gathered at the FNB Stadium with comrades in Kosatu, having pulled together a big march against liberalization. And I came from the informal settlement, the squatter camp. Comrade Soli knows it, in Mamelodi, where I was one of those young people who were allocating stands there. And I came with a few of my friends when you were addressing the rally. And you really called out the racists. The crowd from Mamelodi said, this is the leader we wanted. Those were proud moments. Thank you very much for that. Colleagues, let me not suppress you. As Comrade Soli said, delegates have come here to take a stand. The Congress will be robust, so I will open this session for you to ask questions. Please feel free. Feel free. Whether we mentioned your name, Samkel, Matlala, and Wu, and our colleague that side, please feel free. This is the SACP. You are workers in the first place. That's how we relate with you. Sorry, our apologies. Sorry for that. Sorry, our apologies, Newsroom Africa. Our apologies. Sorry. Oh, the stand. Oh, sorry. Newsroom can't fall. Newsroom can't fall. Yeah, newsroom can't fall. Please, don't fall. Colleagues, let me welcome you. Kaya. You're no longer from Kaya. I enjoyed that. Kaya and Samkelo and Tebu. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. Can I invite a hand? Awam you must speak. You are number 5. Yeah, that's how we run these things in a friendly manner. Welcome. This is your place. You are workers. This is your place, please. The first speaker.
Hi, good day. It's Kylie Flekumana here from SABC. So just more like on international issues, I just want to know the number of your foreign guests that will be taking part in the Congress, but also just to get the SACP's input. I mean, this Congress comes at a very critical time where there's a raging conflict, where subsequently we've seen the rising cost of living crisis erupting, and South Africa as well being affected. Do you think your delegates will be able to navigate these issues and try to alleviate the plight of South Africans who are facing a very terrible time? But also I see that you have guests from the Kingdom of Eswatini. We know that the SADC Troika is coming up in South Africa. Are you still going to be calling for pro-democratic aspirations to be honored in the Kingdom? Thank you.
Thank you so much for your good question. Number 2 is here at the front. I can see there is a division of labor. So this was the international. Let me hear the political.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mashilo. Mr. Mabai, you make a very interesting point, which seems to be a divergent view from your General Secretary in that exclusive interview that my colleague Ndegu Mkobo had with him when you speak about the unity of the party. He argues that this Congress is at a crossroads where it has to choose between the unity of the organization or dismantling that unity and turning the SACP into factional battles that are similar to that of other alliance partners, in particular COSATU and the ANC, which is pretty much in the doldrums. Second, on the issue of the handover of leadership, Mr. Mashilo, and more in particular your General Secretary, Mr. Nzimande, who was elected in 1998, says he's stepping down as the General Secretary. For you, you have worked with Mr. Nzimande for a while. First as the second Deputy General Secretary, when Jeremy Cronin was the first Deputy General Secretary, and now the first Deputy General Secretary. He says that a GS must not have placed singers like him, What is going to be your stance as someone who has been nominated by 7 of these provinces for the position of General Secretary, because it is determined that you will be the General Secretary come Saturday. What is going to be your style of leadership of the Communist Party? You've been seen marching with right-wing organizations, particularly within the era of state capture, when you were criticized by former President Jacob Zuma, saying that he had never imagined the South African Communist Party marching with right-wing organizations. And second and lastly, are you going to be meeting for a cabinet position now that your General Secretary, GS, is not full-time? It was changed during Braden's and Mande's era. Are you going to be heading for the Blue Lights? Thank you.
Thank you. But you did not acknowledge, you see, if we were in the classroom, if we were in the classroom and it was an assignment, I was going to reduce your marks from 100 to 45 because you did not acknowledge the Sunday world. That information comes from there. Thanks, Ndebo. No, it is just he didn't cite. I don't know whether there are wars in the media.
Good afternoon. My name is Ndebo. I'm with the SABC. I've got a few questions. You said that the First Deputy General Secretary, you said out of the 9 provinces, only 7 will be attending. Gauteng and Mpumalanga won't be attending. So does that mean the delegates from Gauteng and Mpumalanga will not be allowed to participate in this Congress? And how many delegates will be attending? Secondly, it's not the first time that the SACP goes to its National Congress. I heard the General Secretary saying delegates will be obsessed, or the Congress obsession is to make sure that they map the way forward to get the country out of the mess that is in terms of unemployment, in terms of slow growth, in terms of inequality, and of course help the ANC to become the real leader of society, maybe help it to rid itself of factionalism. And I'm saying it's not the first time that the SACP is grappling with these issues. And I think all those issues have been raised in different platforms that we engage with the ANC, like in the Secretariat, the Alliance, in the Alliance Secretariat, and now it has been upped to something called the Alliance Political Council. Do you think that you will be listened out of this conference or beyond this conference? Or you think that it's going to be another meeting where you try to help the ANC and help its government, but nothing will happen? Will it be listened, engaged, and beyond this Congress?
Thank you so much. The organizational and the political. Welcome.
It's Andrew from Business Day. My question is to the outgoing GS. So you mentioned a laundry list of issues that will be discussed at this Congress: the economic crisis, the energy crisis, unemployment, but there's also the issue of leadership. You are the outgoing GS, but there have been rumors that you are also running for chairperson. Could you kindly confirm if you're running for chairperson and why?
Thank you, Andrew. Let me, colleagues, because we are going to a special central committee meeting following this session, check if there is anyone who would like a question so that I do not close. Now, you will be allowed, then you will follow. Can I close if there is no further question? We are still going to come back. We are going to come back as follows. After every major report presented in the plenary, the leadership will come here, and then we are going to interact with you. So that's why I would, for now, ask that we close, and that is a request, because we invited you here. You are our guest, so we have to ask you. I would like you to help me, like, run smoothly so that we are not late. But if you do not, if you think that I should take one more hand, Gavin, you will, are you fine? Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anyone who would like to ask a question? Can I close? Thank you very much. Please. This.
My name is Brian Sakuta from The Citizen. The SACP has taken flack in some quarters for ANC failures in government because of being part of the alliance and with some leaders serving in government. How do you deal with this criticism?
Thank you very much, Brian. I will now invite the leadership. Oh, sorry, my apologies. My profuse apologies. Please, can you give him the microphone to ask this question? Here, this side. Here. I forgot your other name, Comrade Tom from Braamfontein. Sorry, nosy. Comrade, sorry, nosy. You join that name.
Good afternoon. My name is Norman Masongwini from Sacp. A lot has been happening in the country, and the voice of SACP seems to have vanished, unlike in the past where you were vocal, boisterous. How are you hoping to move forward and hold your alliance partner, the ANC, accountable for so many things? We are talking about the economic slum. You are talking about the corruption, your state capture. Moving forward, what are you going to do different to make sure that you continue to play your part as an alliance partner? Thank you.
Thank you very much. One thing that is common in all the questions that have been asked is that you took a stand. That is helpful to the SACP leadership. If you take a stance, you help the party to think beyond where it was before you asked that question. I would like to thank you for that. I will invite the leadership to give clarifications. I will also ask, thank you, Nkonyana, our media liaison officer, to prepare herself to brief you as we will be going to the Central Committee meeting regarding your text and our management of the situation that Comrade Soli referred to. Comrade Blade?
Yeah, thanks very much, Alex. Of course, my comrades will come in. I'm not sure whether also I caught or understood all the questions fully. I'll indicate where I wasn't certain what was being said. Have we got the latest numbers? I don't have them with me now in terms of foreign guests. We've got that number.
No, not yet.
We don't have it as yet because they are still registering as well. But we do have quite a sizable delegation of international guests, as we normally go. If you don't mind, we'll answer that question during the course of Congress, hopefully by the end of the day today or by tomorrow morning. I wasn't sure what we were raising about Eswatini, but yes, there is a delegation. There should be a delegation from both Pudemo and the Communist Party of Swaziland, who should actually be here as part of the forces that are fighting for democracy in Swaziland that we fully support as the SACP, and we will still be reiterating that, including, by the way, also calling upon the SADC process to be speeded up so that the sooner we are able to have democracy in Swaziland, the better for the people of Eswatini and the better for the region, the SADC region as a whole. Of course, we are aware that part of the reason why we are in this economic difficulty has also been worsened by the conflict in the Ukraine. We'll be doing quite some analysis of that and presentation of our stance, which we will not be articulating for the first time. That the primary cause of the conflict in Ukraine must be put on the door of the United States and NATO for their expansion of NATO. NATO is not a political alliance. It's a war machine. It's a killing machine that is being expanded right onto the border with Russia, contrary to the agreements that were made between the former Soviet Union and the United States government, by the way. And Russia, by the way, inherited all the agreements that were done by the Soviet Union. The agreement in 1989, when Germany was being reunified into a single country, was that NATO was not going to move an inch eastward. But no sooner had the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, 1992, former President Clinton actually attacked Yugoslavia, broken it into many countries and so on, contrary to the agreement that has been made. Further movement of NATO towards the east is an act of provocation. It legitimately threatens the legitimate security interests of Russia. We've said when we say this, we are no lackeys of Russia, by the way. You know, Russia largely is a country run by oligarchs, capitalist oligarchs. We are not a capitalist organization. But Russia has legitimate concern about its own security. That is the cause of the war, of the conflict in the Ukraine. It's not Russia that is the cause of it. And we are going to be repeating that, basically, at Congress in our political report. And Congress will discuss that further in terms of what needs to be done. We also have said we support the stance by our government in this instance, that we need a negotiated solution to that. You know, this war and the conflict as it continues, it's just causing misery to ordinary Ukrainians, many of whom are innocent. You know, and that government of Ukraine, unfortunately, is allowing itself to be used at the expense of its own people to pursue an agenda that is not of the immediate interest of the people of Ukraine. That is our view, that is our stance. There must be a negotiated settlement. So the South African government is correct in insisting on that. And part of the solution will have to be the end to NATO's eastward movement, as a condition to actually settle whatever conflict may still be outstanding. That is also what is contributing now to the rising cost of living globally, because of the implications of that conflict for food security, the prices of food, the price of oil in particular. You know, which is affecting the whole world, and then it's actually affecting everything. In a way, by the way, that is proof that even these sanctions against Russia are proving to be a failure. Instead, they are causing more problems. That is why it's very interesting. You know, Biden was saying Nord Stream, which supplies gas, Nord Stream 1, to Europe must close down, has been reopened. Europe will not survive in the coming winter without the gas from Russia. But all these costs, you know, it's American companies, by the way, from the military-industrial complex who are making huge profits with this conflict in the Ukraine. It's not even European companies. Instead, many European companies are suffering just like us as a result of what is going on there. That is why our governments call for an urgent, negotiated solution to that conflict, all the better. Samuel, I don't think that there is anything that's conflictual between what Comrade Soli was saying and what I was saying in the interview. What I was saying in the interview is that I am concerned, you know, that there is somewhat an element that is wanting to introduce factionalist practice in the party. And I was saying that I hope this Congress will not allow that, which is what Comrade Soli is emphasizing. That this Congress will be robust, will debate, but it will have to protect the unity of the party. I think as General Secretary outgoing, I also do have a license to point out where I'm beginning to see, because also now it's eyes of 24 years experience. You know, when one begins to see, no, that we must watch there, watch here, you know, and so on. But it does not depart from the commitment that, and our hope that we're actually going to have a Congress that unites us. As Comrade Soli is correctly saying, robust but united and dignified. Debo, just to correct, all 9 provinces will be attending. All what we were saying is that 2 of them did not go to Congress for particular reasons. Mpumalanga is not yet due for Congress because it had held this Congress later. So the next one is only due in October. So they are still okay. Gauteng, they were supposed to hold Congress, but because of certain challenges, Central Committee took a decision to say, no, let's hold it so that we actually address the number of problems that we have. We don't like to carry, but Gauteng will still have a delegation. Remember that ultimately a Congress is a Congress of branches. It's not a Congress of provinces. Much as we allocate per province, but largely a Congress is supposed to be a Congress of branches of the party, which will be represented, of course, not all of them, because the size of the Congress is small. But we've found a methodology of determining how Congress are going to be. You're asking an important question, and when you say, will we be listened to? Was it you after this Congress? We hope so. We hope that we will actually be listened to. But what we've decided as the SACP is that much as engagement in the alliance is important, we'll continue to do so, including bilaterals, by the way, by allies. We normally sometimes hold bilaterals, like between the SACP and the ANC, SACP and COSATU and the ANC. We encourage that. But we're going to be campaigning more on the ground for our views. That we're not going to be expressing our views only in the boardrooms of the alliance. We are going to be campaigning for them on the ground. That's why our focus on building a socialist, a powerful socialist movement, which must tilt the balance of forces in favor of the workers and the poor. Comrade Soli puts it nicely, by the way, that we are in this trouble because of capitalist greed. But capitalists are washing their hands now. What is government doing? You hear some of these big capitalists with full stomachs, you know, saying president is failing to lead, you know. ESCOM is darkness. They forget that some of them want ESCOM privatized, by the way, in the past. Part of the reason why we did not invest in ESCOM in 1998, I'm not saying that from theory, okay? When I was elected General Secretary, a report in government said, you must, what is the right word? Recapitalize ESCOM. Put money. If you don't, in 15 years' time or so, you're going to start having blackouts. The report said it then. But because there was gear which was adopted by government, supported by the very same capitalists, to want to privatize state-owned enterprises, including ESCOM, that money was not put there. They kept quiet because they were hoping to feed on the carcass of an ESCOM, which was a state-owned enterprise. Today they are the ones. What is the government doing? They were party to the problem, as Comrade Soli is saying. But now that there are difficulties, what is government doing? What is President Ramaphosa doing? Capitalists, they behave that way. When they eat alone. When there are problems, they expect somebody else to address their own problems. These are the issues that for us are very important, that it's not enough to just raise them in alliance forums. We're going to campaign on the ground, as we have always done. We're going to intensify our campaigns. For example, we are saying in the political report tomorrow.
Are you presenting it here?
No. No, I'm not. I know you are worried about your time. But we are saying in the political report tomorrow, In 1994, at the time of South Africa's transition to democracy, the financial sector in this country was 6% of the economy. Today, as I'm speaking to you, it's 25%. And industrialization has almost moved the opposite direction. What kind of an economy in a developing country can be that? You know, I was driving here, by the way. I was going past the Mercedes. I was just struck by the advert. There's a Mercedes garage when you are coming here past the airport. You know, it's written Mercedes Finance. It's something along the lines that you can only get the best finance from the makers of the vehicle. So Mercedes has ceased selling cars, actually. It's now a finance company. That's the financialization that we are talking about. Primarily now, Mercedes is selling finance so that its cars are bought. It's no longer primarily just before you wouldn't go to Mercedes-Benz for finance. Financial sector has become 25% of our economy and no productive forces and industrialization. Are we surprised why there is such high unemployment? We have to campaign for this. And when we say, take some of the monies from the 8 trillion rands, workers' retirement and pension funds, and invest in infrastructure and into the manufacturing industry, we will campaign for that. Because we believe that's a correct way of taking money out of this bubble of the financial sector and putting it into job-creating activities. Look at public sector pension fund, PIC, has 3 trillion rands. What is that 3 trillion rands doing? Who is benefiting from the 3 trillion rands? It's your middle managers in the financial sector who are ripping it off and sometimes supporting projects that are nowhere near creating jobs in this country. In other countries, they would have said, out of this 3 trillion, take 1.5 trillion, invest it into the productive economy. We are saying now we are no longer going to just rely on boardroom discussions. We want to build a socialist movement precisely to actually say we want prescribed assets in this country, taking money from the financial sector and investing it in job-creating activities. We hope Congress will endorse that, because that's not new. It's what the Communist Party has actually been saying. So that's the difference, Deb. When you say, are we going to be taken seriously? Yes, using our own power on the ground. I am not a person, sorry, I didn't hear the name from Business Day. I'm not a person who is into positions.
Thando.
Who's Tando?
Yeah.
That's a nice name.
Thando.
Oh, Tando, oh, not Tando, okay. Tando, that's still a nice name. That's still a nice name. Tando, I'm not personally, no, any of these leaders, people of positions. I'm now entitled maybe to make this example. I was pulled out of Parliament in 1999. When I was on the list, I would have gone back as an MP to come and work for the SACP for 10 years. When most of the time you were not sure whether you were going to even get paid. It's gotten worse now. Because I wasn't a person of position. I was being asked by the party that I must pull out to come and serve full time. I have voluntarily stepped down as General Secretary of the SACP. I wasn't pushed. I just said it's time for change, you know. I've said I'm available to the Communist Party to deploy me in its own structures at this Congress as it sees fit. Not because I'm looking for a position. Cha ikhundla no. Uma siza isikhundla, let it come as part of me serving, not because I am all out. 9 of us are actually like that. That's what keeps this party, by the way, to do some of the things that it is able. So I don't know what Congress is going to say. I mean it. I don't know what Congress is going to say. It doesn't mean that one doesn't have a view. Now, Brian, you say that we have sometimes taken flack for some of the failures. Yes, if we are in an alliance, we are part of government. And we are part of a revolution, let me put it that way. The mistakes we made, like the one mistake I have already said we made some years ago, in terms of working together with people who turned out to betray what we thought we were working together with. We had a betrayal as far as we are concerned, you know? You take responsibility for that. You don't start denying. You take responsibility. The challenge, the art of being a good organization and to provide good leadership is to be able to identify mistakes on time and come up with a plan on how to correct them. There is no revolution. Ubaba Kwala used to put this nicely. Don't befriend anyone who says, I don't make mistakes, because that person is lazy. You can only not do mistakes if you are doing nothing. So don't have a friend like that. If you are doing something, you are bound to make a mistake. The art is to recognize the mistake on time and come up with a plan to actually deal with it. But we are not going to take responsibility for things that should not have been done and should not have happened. We are not going to take responsibility for Guptas for having stolen our wealth. We hope they are coming back sooner, by the way, to face their music here. We are not going to take responsibility for that. We took responsibility insofar as I said, as the Communist Party, we went to the ANC leadership and said, what is this thing of these Guptas here? What are they doing? Who are they? We took that responsibility. We'll tell that story full time one day, even before we went out publicly. Because we said, this is just something that is completely wrong. But we are not acting like angels. We do those things because we believe they pose a threat to what we want to achieve. And we've been proven right. With the commission now, with its report, we've been proven right that we're actually correct about those. Norman, I don't think our voice has receded, really. I don't want now to say, yeah, Nzimande, now we are criticizing us as the media. No, I'm not. But sometimes we say things and then you don't tell the world what we have said. And then you can't come back then and say your voice has receded. Our voice has not receded, even on current issues now, on electricity, on ESCOM, on the economy. We've also campaigned, by the way. There are some people who want to be known as having been big campaigners on land. They did absolutely bugger all. We had a campaign on land that led to a land summit which said the willing buyer, willing seller must not be taken up. Some of them are very rhetorical. We're going to take land. Where do they go to take land? Government land. Government land, because that's a soft spot. You don't go to the big land owned by the big bourgeoisie, no. But we are going to be occupying land and so on. We have also been campaigning. We are not perfect. We don't have all the resources to do what we want to do all the time, but we are going to hear our voice. In fact, this Congress will be consolidating some of the voices and stances we've been taking over the last 5 years. I think we've answered the issue of what is it that we are going to do differently. Now, as of some of the things we haven't campaigned for, we've simply stated them. We want to campaign now for all the key things. I'm sorry, Alex, I've taken long, but I'm sure that my comrades here will want to add if they do. You know, I'm just enjoying my being General Secretary for the last time. I hope you will understand that.
Colleagues, there is one point.
I know.
Dr. Nzimande did not mention. He actually received an offer to be a professor at a university. And Comrade Chris, I'm looking at the GS because he did something like that to me sometimes. Looked at it and said, hey, this is good. Very good place. But you are not going. So, and he didn't go. So I was just making that decision and the personal position. Yeah. Thank you, Ngonyane. Please come as the leadership goes to the Special Central Committee meeting. Take the media through your arrangements as our media liaison officer, including
I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind that at all. ngiyozidlela inyama nje dissection.
Colleagues, you are in the hands of, my leader, if I can do like what Comrade Blake was doing when he was talking for Comrade Zondo, Nogala, you are in the hands of Comrade Henry Wanyama, who will take care of all your arrangements. She is the only one whose term of office is not coming to an end here. So she will take you through and help you. You have a number and she will assist. And we will be communicating with you through her as we proceed. Thank you, leadership.